Welcome back, everyone. This is video 9 of the Gull Guides featured highlight series, September 2025. Lesser black-backed gull is an old world species that's seen a rapid expansion across North America in the last 40 years, and particularly so in the last 15 years or so. Range maps have had trouble keeping up with this expansion, yet despite the thousands of individuals recorded annually across the North American continent, we still don't have any records of a pair of nesting lesser blackbacks anywhere throughout the U.S. or Canada. The closest known colonies remain those from southwest Greenland. Two independent studies that have used satellite tracking on adults seem to suggest that is indeed where they're migrating and where they breed. I wrote an article on this very subject in Birding magazine about 12 years ago, which you can find in volume 45, issue 1. Since then, the theme has not really changed and the questions have remained the same. Where are all these lesser blackbacks coming from? You can now regularly find hundreds of them in the non-breeding season in places like Bucks County, Pennsylvania, as well as several counties in Virginia and throughout Florida. Of late, farther west, Hancock County, Ohio, has seen numbers seemingly double in the last few years, now in the low hundreds. Other strongholds include the Texas Gulf Coast, the Colorado Front Range, and noticeable increases throughout southern Canada, particularly in southern Manitoba. Farther west, you can find them in Utah, Nevada, New Mexico, Arizona, the Salton Sea region, and they're sprinkled as singletons now all throughout the California coast. The last region to see an uptick in numbers is the far Pacific Northwest, places like Vancouver, Juneau, Southeast Alaska, the Bering Sea Islands, Nome. None of these places have really seen an uptick in lesser black-backed gull numbers. Incidentally, my August 2025 monthly notables report on anything Laris this month includes a sighting from coastal Washington state, as well as one from Sitka, Alaska. This is pretty unusual. Despite this, the paucity of records throughout Alaska and points south support the belief that lesser blackbacks in North America don't come here or arrive here trans-Pacifically. In any event, regardless of where you are in North America at the moment, you have a very good chance of seeing this species, especially the farther east you are. September is the month, traditionally, that juveniles are first detected, and there's no doubt that some are overlooked, where they're primarily written off as American Herring Gulls. This age group, that is juveniles or first cycles, is really the only age where they can be particularly tricky and difficult to separate from American Herring Gull, especially if you're new and just beginning to look at large first cycle gulls. So, in this video, what I want to do is highlight some of the key features of first cycle lesser blackbacks and give some attention to how you separate them from American Herring Gull, Laris smithsonianus. We'll begin with this collage of 4 images found in the introduction of the Lesser Black-backed Gull account in the Gull Guide. The first image here is a Netherlands bird in August. All the feathers appear to be juvenile. You'll notice it looks very scalloped, plain edging to the upper parts, a long wing projection, a fairly narrow jet black bill, and importantly, pale underparts, meaning the belly, the breasts have this scaly, whitish background color. And this is true of many old world species, where the belly and breast have this whitish ground color. In 24.3, in November, Indiana, that individual is a little more chocolatey, but you'll notice it has dark bases to the greater coverts, at least the outer greater coverts, has this streaky face here, this fine streaking on the head and the cheeks. Overall, the breast, belly, and underparts look pretty scaly, and I could see that whitish ground color. 24.2, Michigan in October. This bird appears to be more bulky, perhaps a male, but the bill is probably still developing. What you notice about this bird, which is a little unusual, is the fairly barred greater coverts and the pale tips to these tertials show some pretty good notching. This tends to be the exception with lesser black-backed gulls, but it is found, and it should be known. The wing projection on this individual is fairly long. There's a lot of body behind the legs is typically the look that you have on Lesser Black-backed Gull. You can see that particularly well in 24-1 and 24-2. There's just a lot of body, which looks like the shape of a cone extending beyond those legs. In 24-8, this individual from Mexico now in December has upper parts that are really difficult to confuse with American herring gulls. This solid centered chocolate brown upper parts. The head now is this contrasting white, still with a black bill base. The blackish scapulars that you're seeing here are actually first alternate or post-juvenile. So this collage here gives a good indication of some of the variation that you can find in this age group. And we'll compare this bird here on the right with an American herring gull. What you'll notice later in the season, say December, January, February, is both species, herring and lesser blackback, start to look particularly faded. But structurally, American herring averages a bit larger, a bit more of a blockier head, just more breast and chest to it. The bill base on this American herring is starting to pale. That's not something you'd expect on a 1-year-old lesser blackback. Lesser blackback is showing more streaking on the cheek, more of a scaly pattern to the underparts. If you notice here, this is a great comparison of the pattern on the belly to this bird versus the smooth, velvety texture on this American herring. That's a good field mark there. But the wing coverts, the lesser coverts, the medium coverts seem to be more solid, chocolatey brown on the lesser. It's holding this jet black bill. It seems to show this more elongated look to the back of the body. And overall, they just average a little bit smaller. In flight, there are some key differences. American herring typically shows this contrasting pale window. And overall, they just don't have as solidly dark brown upper parts consistently across the wing as lesser blackback does. This lesser blackback shows a fairly dark tail, and they don't all look like this. And it may actually be confused with an American herring's tail. But notice there's just less patterning on the wing, and overall, the head just seems smaller and the wing is more narrow. And so by more narrow, what we mean here is the arm just has less width compared to something like this American herring. Notice the bill pattern on the American herring as well. So this bird here we had yesterday on Lake Michigan. Someone on the boat thought this is for sure a lesser blackback gull because there's a lot of pale being seen on the upper tail coverts. And unfortunately, American herring can show this as well. So there is some overlap in this contrasting pattern on the tail. But you'll notice there's a pretty prominent window on the inner primaries. So that's a strike against lesser blackback. Also, the notching, the extensive patterning on these lower scapulars is another American herring feature. The bill on this bird, even though it looks overall black, just a little pale edging on the culmen there is already an indication that this is probably not a lesser blackback gull, and it is indeed a juvenile American herring. This bird in comparison, if you look at the dark bases to the outer greater coverts, and that is pretty uniform with the primary coverts, that dark swath there usually pops in the field. The lack of an inner primary window here, there's very little contrast there, and that's considering the fact that those inner primaries have fully spread feathers there. So you're going to see some of that pale on the inner webs when they spread their wings fully like that. It's less noticeable on the left wing here on the lower side of this image. The tail base is fairly white with some good patterning on this bird, but it does have somewhat of a defined tail band that I see is a little more unusual for something like an American herring gull. Notice the jet black bill, it's fairly straight. The plain scapulars here, especially these lower scapulars, they're fairly plain in comparison to what you'd find on an American herring gull, where they tend to show this holly leaf pattern, a more notched pattern. All right, finally, this bird here, I just wanted to share another American herring from Lake Michigan yesterday. beside the window here, and the notched lower scapulars, the dark tail base. I just thought it was an exceptional bird to share, showing how soon the bill base can pale on some of these American herring gulls. So this is from August 31st, and this bird has a bill base that looks a lot more like a California gull at this time of year. So I think overall, if you're looking for structural features on lesser blackback, the head average is smaller, and so as a result, the bill often looks smaller. Certainly slimmer and straighter at the tip, and they have this long wing projection when they're resting. You have this conical look, this attenuated look to the back of the body. Overall, the upper parts, plumage-wise, tend to be plainer on lesser blackback. At this time of year, they're going to have this very scalloped look to them. The head is going to be a little more streaky. You'll see this dark eye mask on a number of individuals, this face mask, if you will. The underparts are important. The underparts on lesser blackback have this pale ground color and this scaly pattern to the breast and chest. On American herring, it's more of a smooth, velvety look here. And of course, later in the season, as they start to molt their underparts and start to bleach, that difference becomes less and less noticeable. So you use other things like structural features, the bill pattern, what have you. The open wing is very useful. You will often have the impression of a darker bird lacking a window with reduced pigment on the tail base. I hope that's been helpful. This is the time of year to get out there and find those fresh juveniles as they start arriving from presumably Greenland. The adults are starting to arrive. I just saw a report this morning of a number of birds being seen throughout the Great Lakes that weren't here just a week ago. And so fall is upon us. Enjoy the gull migration, and we'll see you next time in October. Thank you.